in the manicured suburbs of Willow Creek Estates, where every lawn was trimmed to HOA-approved perfection and every mailbox matched the community's timeless beige palette. Life hummed along with the deceptive calm of a pressure cooker on low simmer. The air smelled of fresh-cut grass and unspoken resentments, the kind that fester behind vinyl siding and picket fences. Ethan Caldwell had been the quiet backbone of the HOA board for years, the guy who fixed disputes without fanfare, the one who actually read the bylaws cover to cover while everyone else skimmed the highlights over Chardonnay at block parties. He wasn't flashy, no power suits or booming voice, just a steady presence in khakis and a faded polo, sipping black coffee from a chipped mug that read, "World's okayest neighbor." Ethan had moved to Willow Creek a decade ago, drawn by the promise of community, but stayed because he saw the cracks in the facade, the arbitrary fines for unsightly garden gnomes, the mandatory holiday light displays that turned December into a garish competition. He volunteered for the board, not for glory, but to keep things sane. Under his watch, complaints were resolved with logic, not lectures. A neighbor's overgrown hedge? He'd mediate a trim instead of slapping a lien. Kids' lemonade stand? Approved with a wink, as long as it didn't block the sidewalk. Ethan was a load-bearing wall in a house of cards built on petty egos. But no one noticed. Or if they did, they dismissed him as the librarian type, the boring enforcer who dotted I's and crossed T's while the real players networked at barbecues. Then came Karen Hargrove. She swept into Willow Creek like a storm front, all-pearl earrings and Pilates toned arms. Her smile as sharp as her bob haircut. Karen had chaired HOAs in 3 states before, boasting about her vision for elevated living standards. She ran for board president on a platform of strict adherence and community excellence, code for micromanaging every blade of grass. The election was a landslide. Residents, tired of minor gripes, voted for her promises of order without reading the fine print. Karen's first meeting as president was a masterclass in passive-aggressive theater. She perched at the head of the folding table in the community clubhouse, her agenda printed on crisp cardstock, while Ethan sat quietly in his usual spot, notebook open. "Folks," she began, her voice honeyed with condescension, "we've let standards slip. Too many cowboys running wild with interpretations. From now on, all complaints and approvals route through me. No more freelance fixes." Eyes flicked to Ethan, but he didn't react, just nodded slowly, like a man noting the wind direction before a sail. Karen leaned in, her gaze landing on him like a spotlight. "That includes you, Ethan. You're great at paperwork, but hugs and handshakes don't scale. We need enforcers, not enablers." The room tittered nervously. Someone whispered overhead behind a hand, but Ethan merely closed his notebook. "Acknowledged," he said, his tone even as asphalt. No pushback, no drama, just compliance. But in that moment, something shifted, subtle as a clause buried in bylaws. Ethan went home that night to his modest split level, poured a neat bourbon, and pulled out the HOA charter, a dog-eared binder he'd annotated years ago during a crisis when the board was overwhelmed with new builds. Back then, with legal fees skyrocketing and disputes piling up, Ethan had stepped in, drafting amendments to keep things moving. One in particular, Section 6C. In the event of role disruption, the assigned mediator shall retain interim oversight privileges for continuity unless explicitly revoked in writing. It was a patch, meant to ensure smooth transitions, but no one had ever scrubbed it. Residents liked the stability. The board forgot it existed. Ethan reread it under the kitchen light, his face impassive, then opened his laptop. By dawn, he'd reviewed every resident file tied to his mediations, dozens of them, from fence disputes to pool permits. He didn't smile, didn't gloat, just started drafting notices, calm and precise. The next day, Willow Creek woke to the usual symphony of sprinklers and garage doors, oblivious to the ticking beneath the surface. Karen, meanwhile, reveled in her new regime, issuing memos on acceptable mulch colors and scheduling compliance walks where she'd patrol with a clipboard, noting infractions like a hawk spotting mice. This is for the greater good, she'd coo to offenders, her eyes gleaming with the thrill of control. Ethan, demoted to advisory only, skipped the walks. Instead, he fielded quiet calls from frustrated neighbors. Yes, he'd say softly into the phone, "I've noted the change. Continuity protocol activated. No disruption. Hang up. Note it down. CC the board email." No one checked that inbox. It was flooded with spam and petty gripes. By evening, he'd sent the first batch, polite emails to residents he'd helped, citing Section 6C and offering interim guidance through his newly formed Willow Continuity Group, an informal network registered quietly with the state as a Neighborhood Advisory LLC. Nothing flashy, just a legal ghost for seamless support. Residents replied quickly. "Thanks, Ethan. Send details. No fanfare. Just trust shifting like sand." Karen didn't notice at first. Too busy finding misses. Patel for non-conforming flower beds, pink petunias instead of approved white. "Standards matter," Karen lectured, her voice dripping with faux sympathy. "Mrs. Patel nodded, but later emailed Ethan. "Help?" He did, invoking 6C to mediate privately. One by one, disputes bypassed the board. Ethan worked from his home office, screens glowing, bourbon untouched. He wasn't angry, he was efficient, and Willow Creek's facade began to crack. Whisper by whisper, the whispers turned to murmurs by week's end. A few residents skipped the monthly dues meeting, citing alternative resolution. Karen brushed it off as laziness, but her compliance walks felt lonelier, her clipboard heavier. Ethan, meanwhile, had queued more notices, timed, sequenced, every 90 minutes, each one a surgical cut, per Section 6C, continuity ensured. Board CC'd. He packed his old board files neatly, paused at the door, and allowed himself a faint smile. The tide was turning, and Karen had no idea she'd opened the floodgates. The murmurs swelled into a low rumble as the days blurred in Willow Creek, where the sunsets painted the rooftops in ironic pastels, masking the brewing storm. Karen Hargrove's reign hit its stride, her edicts multiplying like weeds in untended soil. She banned excessive bird feeders. They attract vermin, darlings, and mandated bi-weekly garage inspections for clutter violations. Residents grumbled in driveways, exchanging eye rolls over hedges, but few dared confront her directly. Her board meetings became monologues, her gavel a punctuation mark on absurdity. Unity through uniformity, she'd proclaim, her pearls clicking like Morse code for control. Ethan Caldwell observed it all from his perch on the sidelines, his demotion a badge he wore invisibly. He didn't attend the meetings anymore. Didn't need to. His phone buzzed steadily with "Please, Mr. Lopez," about his unauthorized basketball hoop. The Wilsons over a fence height dispute. "Understood," Ethan would reply, voice steady as a metronome, invoking continuity per bylaws. Details forthcoming. He didn't raise hell, he rerouted it. At home, his laptop hummed with activity. He'd formed Willow Continuity Group, not as rebellion, but as a lifeboat, registered quietly. No fanfare, just a framework for independent mediation. The emails flowed, factual, airtight, CCing the board's neglected inbox, transitioning oversight to ensure no lapse. They'd read, citing Section 6C like gospel. Residents latched on. Why fight Karen's red tape when Ethan offers shortcut? By midweek, A dozen households had quietly opted in, their disputes vanishing from the official ledger. Karen sensed the shift during her next patrol. Clipboard in hand, heels clicking on sidewalks. Fewer doors opened to her knocks. Excuses piled up like autumn leaves. Busy, they'd say, or handled. Her smile tightened, eyes narrowing. This is mandatory, she'd insist to one evasive neighbor. Her tone sharpening. Non-compliance fines start at $50. The man shrugged. Check with Ethan. He's got it. Karen's jaw clenched. Who was Ethan to undercut her? Back at the clubhouse. She rifled through emails, finally spotting the flood in the board inbox. What is this nonsense? She muttered, scanning one. Her face paled slightly, then flushed. Interim privileges? This is sabotage. She fired off a memo to the board. All mediations cease immediately. Route through president only. But Ethan had anticipated it. His responses were already queued. Looping in residence. Per your request. Continuity maintained independently. No aggression. Just adherence. The chasm widened. Social media whispers started. Anonymous posts on the neighborhood app. Karen's rules are a joke. Ethan's group actually helps. Karen dismissed them as disgruntled outliers, but her patrols grew tense. Her voice pitching higher. This community thrives on rules, she'd lecture a group at the pool, where swimsuits now required modest coverage. One woman snorted. Thrives or suffocates? Karen's retort was swift. Fines for insubordination. But behind closed doors, she paced, pearls twisting in her fingers. He's exploiting a loophole, she hissed to her vice president, a sycophant named Todd. We need to shut it down. Todd nodded eagerly. Revoke it, Karen scoffed. Obviously. Draft a motion. But as they dug into the bylaws, dust motes dancing in the clubhouse light, they hit a snag. Section 6C wasn't easily erasable. It required a full vote. Notice periods, quorums. Ethan had drafted it airtight during the old board's chaos, when disputes threatened lawsuits. No one had challenged it then. Now it was entrenched. Karen's emails demanding cessation bounced back with Ethan's polite replies. Compliance noted. Transitions proceed as per charter. Residents trickled away, one by one. The Patels hosted a barbecue, unapproved, but mediated by Ethan. Laughter echoed, a stark contrast to Karen's sterile meetings. She crashed it, clipboard raised. This violates gathering protocols. The host smiled. Ethan cleared it under continuity. Karen's face twisted, mirthless, furious. He's not authorized, but the group ignored her. Chatting on, she stormed off, heels sinking into grass, muttering about ingrates. That night, Ethan sipped bourbon, reviewing files. 19 households now under his group, not stolen, just migrated. He didn't celebrate, he calculated. The board treasury dipped as dues redirected for independent fees. Karen's power, once ironclad, frayed at the edges. Whispers turned to open snickers. Queen Karen's losing her court. She doubled down, issuing liens. But Ethan's group countered with legal notes, invalid under 6C. The pressure built, a dike cracking under steady flow. Karen called an emergency meeting, her voice over the intercom strained. Attendance mandatory. Turnout was sparse. Half the seats empty. Residents opting for Ethan's virtual sessions instead. She banged the gavel. This mutiny ends now. But eyes rolled. Someone chuckled darkly. Mutiny? Or escape? Karen's control slipped, her facade crumbling like overbaked HOA cookies. Ethan watched from afar, his home office a command center of calm. The escalation wasn't loud. It was inexorable, a slow burn of compliance turning weapon. Karen's next move, a personal visit to Ethan's door, knuckles rapping sharply. He opened it, mug in hand. Karen, her eyes blazed. You're destroying this community. He tilted his head. I'm following the rules you enforced. She sputtered. This clause, it's outdated. Ethan shrugged. Then revoke it properly. Until then, continuity prevails. She left fuming, but the seed of doubt sprouted. Back home, she poured wine, scrolling emails. More transitions. Her empire shrank, resident by resident. The satire bit deep, the queen of rules, hoist by her own petard. Ethan closed his laptop. The night quiet save for crickets. The boil was nearing, and Willow Creek teetered on the edge of explosion. The boil erupted in Willow Creek like a geyser under the manicured turf. Steam hissing through cracks in the perfect pavement. Karen Hargrove's emergency meeting devolved in a farce. The clubhouse echoing with half-empty chairs scraping against linoleum. She stood at the podium, pearls gleaming under fluorescent lights. Her agenda now a shield against the unraveling. This is an insurrection, she declared, voice pitching into hysteria. Ethan Caldwell is poaching members with some dusty claws. Murmurs rippled, some amused, others weary. A bold resident, Mr. Lopez, raised a hand. Poaching? We chose him. Your rules are suffocating. Karen's eyes narrowed to slits. Rules build community. Lopez snorted. They build fines. Ethan's group? Actual help. The room tittered. A dark chuckle spreading like wildfire. Karen banged the gavel. Crack, but it only amplified the mockery. Todd, her loyal VP, stammered support. We can vote to revoke 6C. But quorum was short. Half the residents had defected to Ethan's sessions, where disputes resolved without drama. Karen's face flushed. A caricature of thwarted authority. This isn't democracy, it's chaos. Someone whispered. Says the dictator. The meeting adjourned in disarray. Karen storming out. Clipboard abandoned. Back at her colonial-style home. She paced the kitchen, wine glass sloshing. He's turning them against me, she hissed to her reflection. Her husband, wisely silent, nodded. She fired off emails, cease and desist to Ethan, threats to residents. But replies trickled in, per 6C, independent oversight valid. Ethan's responses were masterpieces of restraint, polite daggers. Board notified. Transitions compliant. The Treasury hemorrhaged. Dues funneled to Willow Continuity Group for mediation services. Karen called a board huddle. Her inner circle shrinking to Todd and a reluctant treasurer. We sue, she snapped. The treasurer paled. On what grounds? He's following bylaws. Karen's laugh was brittle. Bylaws I enforce. The irony hung heavy. A chasm of hypocrisy. Meanwhile, Ethan's group flourished quietly. Virtual meets drew crowds. Residents sharing stories of Karen's absurdities. The time she fined a family for inappropriate Halloween decor, a skeleton deemed macabre. Or demanded paint samples for birdhouses. Laughter mixed with outrage. A cathartic brew. She's her own worst enemy, one said. Ethan moderated. Focus on solutions. No gloating, just efficiency. The high-wire tension snapped midweek. Karen ambushed a neighborhood barbecue, now under Ethan's auspices. Smoke curled from grills. Kids laughed. A scene of normalcy she despised. Unsanctioned, she bellowed. Marching in. Heads turned. Smirks hidden. The host, Mrs. Wilson, crossed arms. Cleared by continuity group. Karen's voice rose. That's not authority. Wilson shrugged. Feels more legit than your mulch mandates. The crowd chuckled darkly. Laughs laced with years of pent-up fury. Karen whirled on Ethan, who'd arrived quietly. You, this is your doing. He met her gaze. Calm as ever. I'm providing continuity, as per the charter you champion. Her finger jabbed. You're a snake. Ethan's reply was soft. Slicing. Snakes shed skin. Maybe it's time for new leadership. The group erupted in applause. A wave of schadenfreude crashing over her. Karen retreated, humiliated, her heels clicking retreat. That night, the app exploded. Memes of Queen Karen toppling, dark humor skewering her rules. Fine for breathing? Thanks. HOA horror. She scrolled. Wine forgotten. Face ashen. The board's inbox overflowed with resignations. Residents citing 6C to exit official channels. Finances cratered. Liens backfired as Ethan's group offered pro bono counters. Karen called legal, voice trembling. Can we fight this? The lawyer's pause was damning. The clause is ironclad. You never revoked it. Her world tilted. The satire deepened. The enforcer enforced out. Ethan, in his office, reviewed the tally. 30 households now. A majority. He didn't revel. He prepared. The climax loomed. A board vote on revocation. Karen rallied, door-to-door pleading, for the community. But doors slammed. Eyes rolled. Community? You mean control? One spat. The vote night arrived. Clubhouse packed. Not with supporters, but spectators hungry for the fall. Karen opened, voice quavering. We must end this loophole. Ethan sat him back. Notebook open. Debate raged. Accusations flew. But facts held. 6C was for stability. Ethan interjected mildly. You disrupted roles. Residents chose continuity. Karen lunged verbally. You're stealing. He countered, following rules. The vote failed. Quorum lost to abstentions. Gasps. Then cheers. Karen's gavel dropped. Clattering. She stood frozen. Empire in ruins. The reversal hit like thunder. Residents filed to dissolve the old board, invoking bylaws Karen once wielded. Ethan's group proposed as interim. Nominations poured in for him. Karen's face crumpled, a mask slipping. This can't be, she whispered. But it was. The high trampled by the overlooked. Willow Creek exhaled, the pressure releasing in waves of vindictive joy. Ethan rose, voice steady. Let's rebuild properly. Applause thundered. A bunga of justice served cold. The thunder of applause faded into a stunned hush in the Willow Creek clubhouse. The air thick with the scent of stale coffee and fresh upheaval. Karen Hargrove stood at the podium, her pearls now a noose of irony, her face a mosaic of disbelief and dawning horror. The vote to revoke Section 6C had crumbled like her meticulously planned flower beds after a storm. Abstentions from defectors. Outright no's from the emboldened. Residents who'd once nodded meekly now stared back with eyes alight in schadenfreude. Their whispers a chorus of finally. Karen's voice cracked as she grasped the gavel one last time. This is not over. But her words dissolved into the void, drowned by a resident's bold motion. I propose dissolution of the current board. Invoke Article 12 for emergency restructure. Murmurs swelled. Agreement rippled. Ethan Caldwell remained seated in the back, his chipped mug cooling beside him, expression unchanged. He didn't need to speak. The bylaws did it for him. Karen whirled, finger pointing like a broken compass. You orchestrated this. Ethan's reply was a whisper that carried. I complied. The room erupted again. Dark laughter bubbling, the kind that masks years of swallowed bile. One woman called out, Karen, how's that for uniformity? Snickers spread, a viral contagion of mockery. Karen's facade shattered. She slammed the podium, storming to the exit, but paused at the door, turning with venom. You'll regret this. I'll sue. The threat landed flat, met with eye rolls. Outside, under street lamps casting dramatic shadows on her retreat, she fumbled for her phone, dialing lawyers, realtors, anyone to salvage her throne. But the calls went to voicemail. The night indifferent. Back inside, the motion passed unanimously among the quorum. Ethan's group, Willow Continuity, nominated as interim stewards. Nods all around. No one questioned it. He'd earned trust, not through bluster, but boring reliability. As the meeting adjourned, residents clustered around Ethan, slapping backs, sharing war stories. That time she fined me for my dog's bark, ridiculous. Ethan nodded, deflecting praise. Rules are rules. We just enforce them fairly. The satire peaked in post-meeting chats. Memes flooded the app. Karen photoshopped as a crumbling statue. Captioned, HOA tyrant toppled by her own tape measure. Dark humor laced with truth. The social climber fell by the ladder she ignored. Ethan slipped away quietly, driving home under stars that seemed brighter. Unburdened, his phone buzzed. Texts of thanks. Offers to join his group formally. He responded briefly. Welcome. No victory lap. Just continuity. The next morning, Willow Creek awoke transformed. Sprinklers hissed without fear of fines. A kid's lemonade stand popped up unchecked. Karen's house bore a for sale sign by noon. Whispers said she'd fled to another suburb, chasing fresh conquests. Her former allies, like Todd, resigned via email, personal reasons. The board's old treasury transferred seamlessly to the new entity. Audits revealing Karen's petty slush funds for enforcement supplies. Laughter echoed in driveways, cathartic, biting. She thought she was queen, one neighbor chuckled. Turns out, she was the jester. Ethan's first act as interim chair, a town hall. Casual. No gavels. No more nonsense rules, he said simply. Community over control. Cheers rose. A release of pent-up fury. The reversal was complete. Justice not screamed, but whispered into existence. Willow Creek breathed freely. The pressure cooker lid popped. And in the quiet, the lesson lingered. Underestimate the steady, and watch your empire erode, clause by clause. Months later, the neighborhood hummed with genuine peace, barbecues unmonitored, gardens blooming wildly. Ethan's group formalized into the new HOA bylaws scrubbed of absurdities. Section 6C retained, as a reminder, continuity over chaos. He sat on his porch one evening, bourbon in hand, watching kids play. A car slowed, Karen's old allies. Perhaps, but drove on. No confrontation. She'd become a ghost story, a cautionary tale shared over fences. Remember the Karen who ruled with an iron ruler? Laughter followed, dark and satisfying. Ethan smiled faintly, the architect of it all. Content in obscurity. The satire endured in subtle ways. A community newsletter with a Karen corner for absurd rule suggestions. Always vetoed with humor. Residents thrived. Bonds strengthened by the shared takedown. And when new folks moved in, the story was told in hushed tones. Don't mess with the quiet ones. They hold the keys. Willow Creek's facade, once cracked, now gleamed authentically. No more pressure. Just people. Ethan's mug sat on his desk. A relic of resilience. The will had turned. The overlooked, now leading. And the satisfaction lingered like a well-earned sunset. In the afterglow of Willow Creek's rebirth, where lawns grew a tad wilder and mailboxes dared to mismatch, the echoes of Karen's downfall rippled like aftershocks in a satire too real to ignore. Ethan Caldwell's interim role solidified into permanent chairmanship by unanimous vote. No campaigns. No drama. Just nods from residents who'd tasted tyranny and preferred his brand of boring stability. The new HOA meetings were potlucks, not inquisitions. Agendas discussed over pie. Disputes settled with coffee instead of citations. No more mulch mandates, Ethan declared in his first official address. Voice steady as ever. The crowd chuckled darkly. Memories of Karen's absurd edicts fresh. Here, someone toasted with a plastic cup. Karen Hargrove, meanwhile, vanished like a bad dream. Her house sold at a loss to a family who promptly painted the door red, unapproved under old rules. Celebrated now. Whispers said she'd landed in another gated community, peddling her vision anew. But online reviews hinted at repeats. Beware the pearl-wearing dictator. Her former reign became neighborhood lore, a bedtime story for new arrivals. Once, a Karen ruled with fines finer than frog hair. Laughter always followed, a mix of relief and revenge. Ethan's Willow Continuity Group dissolved into the reformed HOA its purpose served. He kept the bylaws binder on his shelf. Section 6C highlighted as a talisman against hubris. Continuity isn't control, he'd say when asked. It's trust. Residents flourished. The Patel's pink petunias bloomed unchecked. Lopez's hoop hosted games. Wilson's fence stood tall. Block parties boomed without permits. A thumb to the nose of past pettiness. The social chasm healed, bridged by shared mockery of the old ways. One evening, an email pinged Ethan's inbox from a law firm, CCing Karen. A feeble suit attempt. Breach of fiduciary duty. He read it calmly, bourbon swirling. His reply, drafted meticulously, all actions compliant per unrevoked charter. Suggest review of Section 6C. Attached, every notice. Time-stamped. The suit fizzled before filing. Lawyers advised against. Citing ironclad terms. Karen's last gasp. Extinguished. The community app buzzed with the news. Karen's comeback? More like backfire. Memes proliferated. Dark humor immortalizing her. A crown-wearing figure tripping over red tape. Satisfaction settled deep. A warm glow against suburban chill. Ethan watched from his porch as kids cycled freely. No speed limits enforced. A neighbor waved. Thanks for the sanity. He nodded. Just following rules. The irony? The board now consulted him on everything. The overhead become essential. When a minor dispute arose, a noisy generator, Ethan mediated. Talk it out. No fines. Just resolution. Contrast sharpened the comedy. Karen's ghost loomed in every avoided absurdity. Years on, Willow Creek stood as a beacon of what HOAs could be, community, not cult. Ethan's mug, chipped but cherished, sat proudly. The tale spread beyond fences. YouTube comments on similar stories referenced the Ethan maneuver, a nod to malicious compliance done right. And in quiet moments, residents smiled. The laugh and anger evolved to pure joy. Justice, served not with a bang, but a binder. The end wasn't explosive, but enduring, a neighborhood reclaimed. One clause at a time.